Okay, so as a review, the levels of taxonomy. Okay, we've been talking about the 8 levels of classification. What is the highest level, the topmost level? Matthew?
Domain.
Domain, very good. What is next, Mamie?
Kingdom.
Kingdom, what's next? Brian?
Phylum.
Phylum, so dear King Philip. Ian, what's next?
Class.
Class. What's next? Connor?
Order.
Order. Let's see. Luke? Matthew?
Genus.
Not yet. Dear King Philip came over 4. There's an F. Wyatt?
Family.
Family. Then Matthew?
Genus.
Genus. Wiley? Not spaghetti. Species. Very good. So, it goes from highest or most general, with the most organisms, to the lowest being specific, where it gets them like just one type of animal. Okay? So remember, our sentence to remember that was domain, or dear King Philip came over 4 great spaghetti. Okay? Say it with me. Dear
King Philip came over 4 great spaghetti.
There we go. Alright, so today we're going to focus on the topmost level, the first level, known as the domain. Okay? Now, there are 3 domains. In your notes, you should see 3 columns. Okay? In the order that they're going to pop up on the board, this is your label for the left column, the top part. This one is the label for the middle column. This one is the label for the right column. Okay? Then we're going to go, then we'll talk about, we'll list characteristics of each one underneath it. But for right now, they're going across the top. Okay? First one, eukarya. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. I can't really see. Eukarya. There we go. Okay? Second one, the middle column, archaea. Riley? And, on the table. You can get it if you need it. And then the furthest right column is bacteria. So you should have this column labeled eukarya, the middle column is archaea, the far right column is bacteria. Okay? Brian?
Just double checking, we do not have to write this, right?
Correct, these are your notes.
Oh.
Thank you for checking. Connor?
So it gives it like this. Are we supposed to write?
So eukarya, the middle column, on top, that's archaea.
Okay.
Then to the furthest right, that's bacteria. Okay? So it should look like this when you have it all set up. Don't worry about the drawings yet. We'll do those later. But it should look like that. Okay? Alright. So, talking about characteristics just for domain eukarya first. Okay? For domain eukaryote, this particular domain has eukaryote cells. So, this should be the first bullet point or dash underneath the column for eukaryote. So, you have your 3 columns, right? Here's eukarya. Underneath that, you should have one little dash. That's where you write eukaryote cells. Okay? What does a eukaryote cell mean? Now, it's the opposite of prokaryote. We say pro and no rhyme. So what does eukaryote mean? It's the opposite. Matthew?
Eukaryote means that the cells are more complex.
Meaning, and they have a what, specifically?
And they have...
They are more complex.
Nucleus.
Good. They have a defined nucleus. So all that DNA is wrapped up and balled up inside that nucleus. Okay? So next bullet point down. In this domain, you could have unicellular or multicellular organisms. Okay? If you're not sure what unicellular means, write this in your notes. Underline the prefix uni. What does the prefix uni mean? Think like a unicycle or a uniform. You all look one way. Uni means what? Brooklyn? One. So off to the side, if you need to remember that, write the number 1. Okay? So, in domain eukaryote, we could have organisms that are made of one cell completely, or multicellular. What does a multicellular organism mean? Riley?
It means more than one.
More than one, like the word multiple. Okay? Now, here's what's interesting about multicellular and unicellular. For a multicellular organism like us, okay, every cell has a different job. So, for example, we have digestive cells, we have blood cells, we have skin cells, we have nerve cells, we have muscle cells, okay? Each of those cells do a different job. For a unicellular organism where the whole thing is just one cell, that one cell does all the jobs, okay? It moves the cell, it reproduces for the cell, it gets rid of trash for the cell, it digests food for the cell. It does all of it in that one cell, it does all the things. Okay? And then last characteristic for this domain, it includes 4 kingdoms. Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, so animals and plants, Kingdom Fungi, mushrooms, mold, yeast, and Kingdom Protista. Now, Kingdom, you don't have to write this, but Kingdom Protista, this is the one kingdom that's a little funky. This is the one that's typically unicellular. Okay? You could have Kingdom Fungi unicellular every once in a while. Okay? But typically when we talk about a eukaryotic unicellular organism, usually we're referring to Kingdom Protista. Matthew?
I remember unicellular is 1 because I know multicellular means many.
Mm-hmm.
So, uni does mean not 1, but I remember by multi means multiple. So then the opposite is 1.
Correct.
And also, if uni means 1 for like unicycle and uniform, what about unique?
Then you are the only one like that. Or it is the only one like that, I would think. That's my assumption. Alright, I'm not going to change the slide. I'm just going to show you the key version of the notes. Okay? It's the exact same information, just on my paper instead. So when you're finished, it should look something like this. At the top, I do want you to draw a little, what a eukaryote cell looks like. So, you're going to draw the outside of your cell membrane, and then the little ball in the middle, that's the nucleus. Okay? That should help us remember that the eukaryote domain, all those organisms within that category are made of cells that look like this. It's where the name eukarya comes from. Brian.
Can I think of an egg because a fried
Yes.
egg because it starts with an E and looks like a fried egg?
Yes, you can think of fried egg. Brooklyn.
Mine kind of looks like a weird shape.
That's okay. Aiden. Yes. Okay, going to the next one. So, we're now going to write characteristics for archaea. Riley, it's right up here. Okay. So, for archaea, first characteristic. This domain is the same as the Archaebacteria kingdom. What I mean by that is this. We just finished talking about domain eukaryote, or eukarya, correct? Eukarya can divide into 4 kingdoms. There are 4 kingdoms in that category. Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and Protista. So when I'm describing this domain, or this category, I could be talking about any of these, right? However, with domain archaea, there is only one kingdom that belongs in this domain. That's Archaebacteria. So, when I'm describing this domain, I'm automatically describing this kingdom because there are no other options. Nod your head if that makes sense. Okay, so it's the same as the Archaebacteria kingdom. Does it make sense? Okay, Okay. Do you see how this domain only has one kingdom? Okay. So if I'm describing characteristics of this domain, then I have to be talking about this kingdom as well. Okay. Caleb? Protista, Kingdom Protista, P-R-O.
Just go Protista.
T-I-S-T-A. Now, fun fact, the next domain over, bacteria, also only has one kingdom. Okay, Eubacteria. We'll get that in just a minute. Okay? Brian.
What's the first name again? I forgot.
You don't need to know this. It's okay.
Well, we're gonna get to it later.
Okay, next one. Next characteristic. These are prokaryote. What does prokaryote mean? Aiden?
It means it only has, it means the cell doesn't have nucleus, it's just scattered.
Good. No nucleus. No.
Like a bowl of noodles.
Like a bowl of noodles. Unicellular. Okay, again, meaning one cell. These organisms often do not need oxygen, which is weird or kind of unique because most living things have to have oxygen to survive. These organisms do not, which is why they're typically found in really rough environments, such as hot springs, black mud. Black mud, it's literally mud made of it's a black color because of the things it's composed of, like sulfur or coal or whatever. I'm not 100% sure, but it is black mud. Very salty water, which most things die in, okay, but these organisms thrive in that. Acidic environments, meaning there's lots of acid, lots of chemicals, and more. So these kinds of organisms like to hang out in very tough environments. Riley?
I went to hot springs in Arkansas.
Nice. Very cool. Connor?
So two things. First, it would be like the same as the Archaeobacteria. It would be like if I have two toys or two Lego bricks, exactly the same Lego brick. When I was describing the characteristics, I'm describing those.
Basically, yeah.
And also, I went to Pagosa Springs over spring break.
Nice.
Over the summer. And you have to see the rooftop thing.
Very cool. Very cool. Alright, no more comments or stories, only questions. Yes.
Why did they put in the domain?
Why do they put in the domain? Good question. Because of all those 6 kingdoms, 4 of them were very similar. So they kind of grouped them all into one big category, and then they needed a category for each of these.
Another question is, when did they start playing the domain?
I'm not sure actually. I have to look that up. I'm not sure when the domain was first added to the levels.
Look up right now.
Maybe in a minute. Alright, next domain, bacteria. First characteristic, it is the same as the Eubacteria kingdom. You see if that might make things a little better for the online people. Same as the Eubacteria kingdom. Next characteristic. Connor, sit down. Oh, okay. Prokaryotes, which we just discussed, means they have no nucleus. Matthew?
There are 5 lines for archaea, but only 4 filled in. No, 5 are filled in.
Nope, there's 5. First one, same as Archaeobacteria. Next one is prokaryote, then unicellular, then often do not need oxygen, then where they're found. Okay, so bacteria. These are also unicellular, and also often don't need oxygen. Okay? Which is kind of interesting, because so far, these two domains, archaea that we just did, and bacteria that we're doing now, look pretty much exactly the same. So now, we're going to get to why they're different. 1990, Brian.
1990?
Mm-hmm. Okay. The year 1990 is when they first added domain, according to the internet.
4 years ago. Not everything we on there.
4 years ago?
30.
Oh, 30 years ago. Yes. Alright, this is where it gets different. These organisms live and feed by decomposing other cells. Okay? So kind of attacking them, breaking them down, and then taking nutrients from that. Or helping decompose or break them down. The next difference, Caleb, I'll help you in a minute, okay? Next difference is some can make their own food. The same structures that plants have to perform photosynthesis can be found in some organisms within this domain. So some of them can do the same thing as plants and make their own food, depending on if they have that structure or not. Now, here's one of the main differences. These organisms, the cells, have an extra layer of protection around the outside, that cell wall that we talked about a little bit before, but they're made of peptidoglycan. Now, you don't have to know what that is. Just know that domain bacteria has a cell wall made of that molecule, and domain archaea does not. That's one of the distinctions between the two. Okay? And then lastly, they can be found in soil, water, and other living things. So these are not found in the harsh environments like domain archaea, but they can be found in soil, water, and other living things. Okay, now don't panic. I'm going to put the key version back up on the board so you can see what the last two columns should look like. Just like this. Okay? So we have domain archaea, same as Archaebacteria kingdom. Prokaryote, unicellular, often do not need oxygen. Again, here's where the similarities are. Okay? These two domains have almost the exact same first four bullet points. But domain archaea is typically found in hot springs, black mud, very salty water, and acidic environments and more. But bacteria live and feed by decomposing other cells, and then I circled these two because they're the two main differences. Some of these can make their own food, and they have those cell walls made of peptidoglycan. That's the main structural difference. Okay, so if I gave you a brand new organism, I said, okay, help me classify this. You would look at its cells, you say, okay, it's prokaryote, so I know it's either this one or this one, but if it has a cell wall made of peptidoglycan, then we would know it goes in this domain. Okay? I see lots of hands, hold on one second. At the top, just like we drew a picture for eukaryote, I want you to draw a picture for prokaryote. So what the cell looks like, and then all that DNA just kind of strung out in there. Can you see that okay, Layla?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ian, question.
Whenever you're home, I'm going to tell my parents the very long word.
Peptidoglycan?
Yes.
Very nice. Luke?
Are we moving to the last one? Because there's a few close right now.
No. Matthew? I don't know. Connor?
So there's two questions. One is kind of off topic, but it's about
Wait, can you ask me later?
I made
Or maybe at the end when we're all done?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so